friends, welcome to another video on Tutorials Point with me, Richa. Today under the Teaching Skills for Educators module, we will talk about the core issues in the learner's context. Well, I'm very excited to teach you because as a learner, it is important to understand what could be certain issues in the education system. Well, on the agenda today, we will talk about core issues in the learner's context, classroom dynamics, student interaction and the teacher's roles, motivating the students to learn, learner's academy or autonomy, and lesson planning and determining the aims. Alright, so let's understand what are the core issues in the learning context. Well, there are three key ideas for the core issues which we need to discuss on: the engagement, project-based learning and feedback. All of these are very imperative in order to have a core issue in the learner's context. Well, the first one is academic transformation, breakthrough teaching and learning modules, innovative partnership and alliances, and strategic transformation of the campus mission. Well, it is very important that as the times are changing, academic transformation is very essential. Gone are the days wherein our parents and our great-grandparents were taught in a particular fashion because of the academics at that point of time. Today, we need to transform the academics in terms of different partnerships, different strategic alliances, etc. The next one is accessibility and universal design. Well, educating the community in effective practices and course design that are accessible by everyone. We cannot really restrict the way, and the information has to be accessed to people. Today, accession has become everywhere. You as a learner can access information on the internet, on Google, on Instagram, and wherever you feel like doing it. However, it is not just restricted to textbook in a school. The third one is faculty development. Well, friends, as a learner, it's important that my faculty member is knowing what has to be taught and how it has to be taught. And hence today, a lot of people actually spend a lot of money in developing their teachers and their faculty members. Empowering and enabling the faculty to craft active learning engagements and deploy educational technology to achieve the learning objective. And hence, again, I would say that faculty or teachers need to be developed so that they can empower the lives of many students. The fourth one is privacy and security. Well, formulation of policies for increased sharing of data, educating the faculty and students on the best practices. Today, data is freely available everywhere, and hence it becomes important to have confidentiality and privacy matters to those data. Let's talk about classroom dynamics. Well, if I have to be in a room with some students and a teacher, I would always like it that the environment for learning is fun for the students. It should not be a rigid way of teaching wherein there is silence and everyone is being restricted to speak, and there is absolutely no way of learning in that particular context. So, the classroom dynamic has to be fun, has to be learning with a lot of fun, and also making sure that everyone shares each other's ideas and opinions so that people learn holistically rather than the traditional way of teaching wherein the teacher speaks and the students only listen. Well, we are done with that particular system, and hence the classroom dynamics play a very important role in today's modern education system. Well, let's understand the student interaction and the teacher's roles. Well, as I mentioned before, a teacher's role is not only to teach. She or he also has to ensure that students are interacting amongst each other, because that is the way to learn the best way. So, there is something which is known as a Titan pad wherein there are 4 different ways. The first is a triad questioning method. Tri means 3, and hence it is like a teacher, a student, and the different companions of the students. So, interaction is all 3-way. Somebody asks a question to somebody else and the other person answers, and all of that. The second is interactive walls, meaning that Everyone should interact with each other, a student with a teacher with a student, etc. It should not be a one-way but a two-way communication. The third is protocols for peer feedback. It is important to understand that the best kind of feedback comes from our peers, from our colleagues, etc. at work. So try to get the best feedback from them and implement on the negative feedback. Think, pair and share. Well, as a teacher, you should always initiate people or students to think for themselves, first thinking by yourself, introspecting, then you pair them up with another partner wherein they talk and then they share and give out the learnings, and that is the best way to teach for a student. Well, again, teacher's role is determining the course goals and the learning objective. Well, as a teacher, it's very essential to know what exactly is the learning outcome for that particular chapter. What do they want the students to really learn from that particular thing? And also plan the three most important task dimension, which is difficulty, relevance and curiosity. It is very important as a teacher to question your students, making it a little difficult for them so that they can challenge themselves and are also curious to learn more and more. If you don't do all of these three things, what happens as a student is that you become very, very complacent and you don't want to learn more. Well, it is important to motivate your students to learn, because if as a teacher you do not motivate your students, somewhere they become very lax and lethargic and lazy and they are not really self-motivated to learn more. So, one way to encourage students and teach them responsibility is to get them involved into the classroom. Give a lot of tasks to different students. For example, you can ask one student to distribute their worksheets. The second student can be asked to maintain or rather monitor the class. The third student can be asked to erase the blackboard so that it is ready for the class. It is important as a teacher to assign different tasks to different students so that they are motivated to learn more and more from you. Let's now look at a learner's autonomy. Well friends, if as a teacher you have taught whatever needs to be taught, it is the learner's decision where and how and what he wants to implement from the learning. You cannot really put a knife on a student's throat saying that you need to implement it. Well, it is only and the final decision of a student how much of the theory that he or she has learned he wants to use it in practice, and that is what is learner's autonomy. Well, a learner's autonomy means a student is being given the authority to use things that he has learned in a theoretical manner. So there are different facets or different areas of how he or she uses the authority. Resource-based approaches, which is independent use of learning resources. Technology-based approaches means then independent use of a learning technology, and that is again the student's decision how he wants to use the technology-based approach. The third is the learners-based approach, which is development of the autonomous learning skills, whether he or she wants to use it. Classroom-based approaches are basically control over the classroom decisions, whatever has been decided unanimously by the entire class. The next is teacher-based approaches, which means focus on teachers' roles and teaching a teacher as an education system. And that is how important it is, a teacher-based approach. Curriculum-based approaches are control over the entire curriculum which has been designed. Well friends, these are different ways in which a learner can use the autonomy or rather the authority over all of these. Well, a lesson planning and determination aim is very important, because as a teacher, if you do not know what is your lesson plan and how you are going to go through the flow of the entire session, what happens is that it leaves the students confused about what they are learning. Hence, it is important that a lesson plan is a teacher's detailed description of the course instruction and the learning's trajectory for a lesson. A daily plan or a daily lesson needs to be made by the teacher, whoever has to teach that to the particular student. So per day, there has to be a different lesson plan basis on what you really want to teach the students and what is the learning outcome you expect at the end of the day from the students. Well, for a learning or a lesson plan to happen in a most effective manner, there are certain steps to be taken into account. You need to start, meaning you need to identify the key concepts and the bigger ideas. For example, if a student today wants to teach the students on time management, he or she has to first understand what are the bigger areas or what are the key concepts of time management that they have to think about. The next is the best that has been thought or said or done. What are the success criteria that will be used and shared? A teacher has to make it very interactive by sharing certain thoughts and ideas so that students do not get bored in that particular lecture. So a lot of things have to be shared with them in terms of examples and case studies, etc. Define excellence. Be specific, extensive and challenging. So a teacher has to really define what is excellent in that particular topic. Determine the assessments, what, when and how. A teacher should always give assessment or a small test so that she knows that the students have understood the particular concept which he or she is teaching. Well, how will you gain evidence in learning? Scaffold and spiral the learning, building and shallow to deep. These are different ways in which a student can make sure that the teacher has made the concepts being explained in a proper manner. Structure of the learning, it is very important that learning happens in a most constructive manner so that the teaching program building in time to revisit and reteach. You need to make sure that you go back to your old chapters and pick up things from them while you're teaching new concepts as well. And the sequence of the learning has to be really properly sequenced in the right manner, the right order, so that the students learn the best way possible. Well friends, that was a small module of ours on the core issues in the context of the learning. Well, I do hope you have enjoyed listening to this particular module. Please use whatever you have learned here in your practical day-to-day life. Thank you for watching us.
Tutorialspoint.com. Simply easy learning.